Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? All right. So I'm just going to start off to say thanks to Shopify, thanks to B-Town Web and Chad for putting on this event. We're really excited to be here and to sort of stand alongside some great Shopify partners. So, if you didn't already know, Shopify, whether you're selling on sort of your own website or whether you're selling on multiple marketplaces, be it Amazon or a combination of those things, Shopify has always given online merchants the ability to sort of express the voice of their brand and to control that brand voice and sort of maintain continuity across all of the channels that they sell on. So that's, doing that and sort of making things intuitive, as the quote from Toby talked about, really gives Shopify merchants the opportunity to, create exceptional online shopping experiences for their users and for their customers. And so when it comes to creating exceptional online shopping experiences, it's not easy, right? You can't go it alone. There's a lot of tools in the tool belt, and there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that you will need help solving. And we're just going to take a look at some of those right now. So whether it's point of sale, maybe you're trying to bridge the gap between your digital and your physical store, for a seamless experience wherever your customers may be buying from. Or, maybe it's the case that you need help with marketing automation, right? So you want to have more sophisticated marketing campaigns and more frequent touch points with your clients so that you can maintain that loyalty and that relationship. There's obviously options for that inside the thriving Shopify ecosystem. And then another piece is sort of web design, right? So your website has to look good, it has to be pleasing to the eye, but it also has to function well, and it can't break down during the checkout process. So with those three top parts of the diagram that I've just talked about, there's a lot of really good options inside the Shopify ecosystem to help you get there. I'm going to focus a little bit on the bottom half here. So if you haven't already figured where I'm going with this, we're going to talk a lot more about warehousing and sort of order fulfillment and sort of how that in recent times has become far more, that in recent times has become critical to creating an exceptional online shopping experience as well. It's the back end essentially is just as important as the front end, whereas, front end was always considered, okay, you have price, product, place, promotion. They're strategically important, but back end is just as important today. And one of the main reasons for that is Amazon. So Amazon has fundamentally changed how consumers think about order delivery and sort of speed of order delivery, and what they would consider satisfactory within that domain, right? They started 20 years ago. They had billions of dollars for logistics infrastructure, and they sort of scaled it specifically and built it specifically for e-commerce. So that's been able to put them in this position. Doing that, they can put fulfillment centers and delivery centers closer to customers and sort of optimize speed and optimize cost. That's the key thing here. Unfortunately, not everybody is going to be able to do and to sort of to catch Amazon in that domain. But it has to be considered that the delivery promise and the delivery experience is as important to the overall brand experience as anything else today. That's reflected in the fact that about 50% of online shoppers will abandon a cart if they don't deem the delivery options to be satisfactory. That's the case right now. We have things like 2-day delivery. That's only going to intensify when we get to next day delivery or same day delivery, as Amazon leads the charge there. So that's something to think about. And I think nobody can go out and sort of have the capital or the resources that Amazon has to start building these fulfillment centers, but there are options available to online merchants, right? You can begin to test and you can begin to iterate what specifically the fulfillment network, what specific fulfillment network will work for your customers. And in doing that, when we see at Flex, we talk to a lot of customers who are in that boat specifically, and they're sort of asking themselves a bunch of questions, how can I determine what kind of a fulfillment network will work best and sort of keep my customers happy and sort of keep my business growing? So let's go through a few. So the first one here is the idea of understanding what your demand looks like, right? So you might have sales on the West Coast or the East Coast or a combination of the two. But understanding sort of what that looks like and what the demand will look like will help you as an input determine what your fulfillment network should look like. Do you need one on East Coast or in between or whatever it is? The second thing is product seasonality, right? So maybe Maybe you sell patio furniture, right? And it's only going to be relevant in certain parts of the year, or certain parts of the country at certain times of the year. But your relative SKU seasonality will also determine where you should position warehouses or fulfillment centers, and that's also something we see merchants thinking about. Another thing to think about is, do I have technical resources available? Maybe I'm a small team, a team of 1 or 2 or whatever it is, but if I select a certain fulfillment option, who's going to do the work? Who's going to do the coding? How do I integrate? If it's a 3PL or something like that, there could be a lengthy systems integration, and that's also a consideration. The next one, so if we think about revenue predictability, that's actually a pretty critical one. I'm not sure if anybody here can predict their revenue. If you can, I'd like to see the crystal ball too. But realistically, revenue predictability is going to determine whether or not an investment with a 3PL over a certain period of time with a fixed contract will actually make sense. And then the last one is based around time, right? Nobody can be in 2 places at the one time. You can only do one thing at a time, or, old adages essentially. But if you have to do order fulfillment and inventory management and a bunch of other activities, can you afford to have them in disparate systems, right? Can you take time away from one thing where your customers and your sales and your promotion might get impacted because of that? So these are all the questions that we find online merchants thinking about. And if you can get to the bottom of these, you're in a position where you might be able to make a decision on the kind of fulfillment option that might be relevant or might be suitable for your business. So let's take a look at that. So the first one over here, if we think about the do-it-yourself method, I think one of the things that's common there is you might have low revenue predictability, right? It's it's kind of volatile. You don't know really what's going to happen on a month-to-month basis, and as well as that, you could also have low demand or low to medium demand only at certain times of the year or whatever the case may be. In that case, I think the DIY method, sort of fulfilling from your business or your garage or whatever it is, might work until you reach that point of scale. And then when you get to scale, you're looking at something like outsourced fulfillment. So outsourced fulfillment with a 3PL or something like that, then again, those questions are going to kick in. You might have to think about, okay, I need to understand what my revenue predictability is if I'm going to talk about a long-term lease or fixed-term contract with a 3PL. Another thing when you talk about outsourced fulfillment is seasonality, right? Demand patterns. So you have to understand where your demand is on the West Coast or the East Coast before you can select which warehouse, where the warehouse is going to be located. So that's outsourced fulfillment. And then moving on to the last option here, which is dynamic fulfillment. So dynamic fulfillment essentially is a more flexible way of fulfilling than outsourced fulfillment. And what I mean by that is it's something that might be available without the conventional sort of fixed-term leases and sort of the rigidness that's associated with that, where you can sort of grow the network and grow your fulfillment network as your sales and as your business grows. So a classic example there might be, I'm running a promotion in a certain metro area, and I would just like to test a shorter delivery promise in that area, to see what it looks like, to see how my customers respond. And if it doesn't work, you can pop it down or, make the node inactive again. So at a high level, these are some of the fulfillment options. The last slide I talked about, which is there's questions to get to these. And then there's obviously fulfillment paths that might be right. That's some choices you have to make. And I'll insert sort of the shameless plug right at the end. But I think, it's because of sort of the lack of dynamic or on-demand fulfillment options that have been in the marketplace up to now that we built Flexe. So Flexe is a network of over 850 warehouses and fulfillment centers across the US and Canada. And basically, they're all connected by a single software platform. So what that means essentially is that we can truly offer on-demand warehousing and fulfillment capacity to clients when they need it, and we use software to streamline the entire process. So what ends up happening is customers can sort of resolve any near-term capacity constraints and also sort of dynamically expand their fulfillment networks at the times when their business is needed, at the times when their business is growing. And then I think the last thing I'll talk about here is that we have a Shopify integration. We also have some products and some ops people here in the audience tonight. If you'd like to talk a little bit afterwards, but yeah, that's it for me. I'll pass it on.